I wish I could tell you that the most shocking thing about my 30th birthday was the surprise party my husband threw, but it wasn't. It wasn't the look on my mother's face when she realized my very successful younger sister, Charlotte, wasn't there. No, the moment that shattered my entire reality and echoed in the stunned silence of a room full of people was when my own mother, the woman who carried me for 9 months, looked me dead in the eye and hissed, "I wish you were never born." Can you even imagine hearing those words from the person who is supposed to love you unconditionally? The air literally left the room. My husband's hand slipped off my back, and the champagne flute I was holding nearly dropped to the hardwood floor. Was I wrong for the way I reacted? Tell me honestly if you would have stood there and taken it, or if you would have done exactly what I did next. To understand why that moment hit me so hard and why I reacted with such finality, you have to know the history, the decades of slow, burn emotional erosion that led to that breaking point. My name is Claire, and for 30 years I was the shadow. I was the placeholder. I was the daughter my mother felt obligated to raise, while my sister, Charlotte, 2 years my junior, was the miracle. Charlotte was the beautiful one, the brilliant one, the one who effortlessly excelled at everything. She was the one who was going to be a doctor, then a lawyer, then a high-flying tech executive, which she now is. From the time we were toddlers, I remember the stark contrast in the way my parents, especially my mother, looked at us. Charlotte got the long, glowing smiles and the framed certificates on the fridge. I got the quick nod and the obligatory, "That's nice, dear," before the conversation inevitably swung back to Charlotte's latest achievement. If I got an A, it was because the class was easy. If Charlotte got an A, it was because she was gifted. I learned early that my greatest function in life was to be the foil, the slightly less successful older sister who made Charlotte shine brighter. It wasn't just small slights. The favoritism was baked into the foundation of our lives. When I got accepted to a good but not elite state university, my father bought me a used sedan. A year later, when Charlotte got into an Ivy League school, they threw a massive party, bought her a brand new Mercedes, and paid for an Olex, Benz's, paid trip to Europe before classes started. They called it celebrating her potential. I was told that since I was going to a local school, I needed to be responsible with my resources. I didn't complain. I never complained. I simply internalized it, putting on a brave face and telling myself that they just had different ways of showing love. I became a master of emotional deflection, burying the hurt under layers of false cheerfulness and an over-the-top desire to please them, constantly seeking that elusive, unqualified approval that always went to my sister. I worked harder, I called more often, I went out of my way to help them, and still it was always about Charlotte. When I met my now husband David, I thought things would change. He saw me. He saw the quiet, hard-working woman I was, and he loved me for it. He was the first person who made me feel like I was enough without having to achieve some arbitrary Charlotte-level success. When we got engaged, my mother's first question was, "Does David make as much money as Charlotte's fiancé? Not, are you happy, or is he kind to you?" It was a financial comparison, a metric of my value. The wedding planning was a nightmare. Every decision, from the venue to the guest list, was scrutinized through the lens of, "What will Charlotte think?" Or, "We can't have a better wedding than Charlotte is going to have someday." My modest, elegant wedding was constantly overshadowed by the invisible, hypothetical, future grand wedding of my sister. David was appalled, but he was patient. He saw the toxic dynamic, and he encouraged me to set boundaries, but I was terrified. The idea of losing even the fragile, conditional connection I had with my parents felt like a failure. The last straw before the birthday explosion was about 6 months ago. I had been working tirelessly on a passion project, a small online bakery that focused on artisanal, gluten-free desserts. It was a huge risk, but it was finally taking off. I was making a good income, and the local paper even did a small feature on me. I was so proud. I called my mother, practically bursting with excitement, to tell her the news and show her the newspaper clipping. Her reaction: "Oh, that's nice, dear. You know, Charlotte is being considered for a VP role, and they're flying her to the Silicon Valley office next week. That's a huge step. Have you seen her new portfolio? I can forward it to you." She didn't even mention the newspaper clipping. She didn't ask about the bakery. Conversation, once again, was instantly and ruthlessly rerouted to the Charlotte show. That was the day I stopped calling every day. I cut back to once a week. I started to build my own life, separate from their constant gravitational pull toward my sister. It was a silent rebellion, a quiet retreat from their emotional neglect, and then came my 30th birthday. David knew how much I secretly dreaded my birthdays because they were always low-key, almost forgotten affairs, while Charlotte's were major productions. So he planned this beautiful, intimate surprise party at our new home. He invited all my closest friends, his family, and, of course, my parents. I was genuinely touched. I walked in, and everyone yelled surprise. And for the first few minutes, I was floating. I felt seen, I felt loved. But then, as the evening wore on, the cracks started to appear. My mother kept looking around the room, her smile brittle, her eyes searching. Finally, she cornered David. I was close enough to overhear the exchange, and I felt that familiar cold dread wash over me. "David," she said, her voice a stage whisper that wasn't quiet enough. "Where is Charlotte?" I told her this was happening. She SVP'd to me, not to you. Did she get the time wrong? It's so unlike her to miss Claire's big birthday. David, bless his heart, gently replied, "Mom, Charlotte sent her regrets. She had a last-minute business trip she couldn't reschedule, but this is Claire's party. She's here and we're celebrating her." My mother's face crumpled. She looked devastated, not for me, but because her favorite person wasn't the star attraction. She walked straight over to me, her face flushed with a bizarre mix of disappointment and anger. She didn't wish me a happy birthday. She didn't even acknowledge the party. "Claire," she started, her voice tight with resentment. "You know, if you hadn't been so difficult growing up, maybe your father and I would have been able to put more resources into Charlotte's education. Earlier, we had to split our time, our money, our focus. It was always a struggle with you. And now, she can't even be here for you because of a huge opportunity she has to take. An opportunity that wouldn't have been so high pressure if we hadn't been spread so thin. Honestly." And this is where her voice dropped to that awful, cutting whisper, the one that makes your stomach turn. "I sometimes look back and wonder, I wish you were never born." I'm standing there in my own living room, surrounded by people who love me, and my mother just delivered the ultimate, most painful rejection possible. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was the culmination of 30 years of feeling like a burden, and now it was out in the open, laid bare for everyone to hear. Her words hung in the air, acidic and heavy, and the entire room went silent. I could feel the heat rising in my face, but a strange calmness settled over me. All the years of trying, all the attempts to earn a love that was freely given to my sister, vaporized in that single, terrible sentence. It was over, the game was done, so that's the situation I was in. I was standing at a crossroads. I could have cried. I could have run to the bathroom. I could have had a dramatic meltdown, but I didn't. All the hurt had distilled into pure, ice-cold clarity. I had to make a choice. I could continue to chase an unconditional love that was never coming, or I could finally, truly, walk away. Before I tell you what happened next, what I actually said, and what the consequences were, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have tried one last time to get her to take it back, Or would you have burned the bridge down and walked away? Seriously, I need to know your take on this because I still question my final decision sometimes, even though I know it was right. I felt David's presence beside me, his silent support a solid anchor in the emotional storm. I straightened my spine. I lifted my chin. I looked my mother directly in her eyes, eyes that held no remorse, only entitlement and frustration that her preferred daughter wasn't present. And I said it, not in a scream, not in a tearful plea, but in a voice that was calm, steady, and utterly devoid of emotion. It was the voice of a woman who had finally accepted an undeniable truth. I stood tall and I said, "Consider me as if I never existed. Live your lives as though there was never a daughter named Claire." The words were a physical blow to her. Her mouth, open to say something else, snapped shut. My father, who had been hovering nearby, his face pale with shame and cowardice, looked like he'd been slapped. The whole party froze. Friends stopped sipping champagne. The music seemed to mute itself. The silence was the loudest, most powerful sound I have ever heard. I didn't stop there. I needed to finish it. I needed to put the period on the end of the sentence that was my life with them. I turned my gaze to my father. "Dad, I am returning the used car you bought me years ago. It's sitting in the garage. I will mail you the title, and I want you both to know that I wish you well. I hope you and Charlotte have a wonderful, fulfilling life together." I paused, allowing the finality to sink in. "As for me, I am done. You got your wish, Mom. I'm gone." Then I took David's hand, thanked him for the beautiful party, and calmly walked through the stunned crowd and into our bedroom. I could hear the immediate, low murmur of chatter erupting in the living room, followed by my mother's voice, rising in indignation. "How dare she? She ruined her own party. She's always so dramatic. That's the part that really got me. Even in that moment, she couldn't take responsibility for her own cruelty. It had to be my fault." David came in a few minutes later, his face a mask of controlled rage. He held me while I finally broke down, the decades of pain pouring out in silent, shaking sobs. He told me I was the bravest person he knew. He told me I had done the right thing. Later that night, my parents left. They didn't come to the bedroom. They didn't apologize. My father left a terse text on David's phone. "Unacceptable behavior. You will hear from us when you come to your senses." That was it. "No, I'm sorry she said that. No, let's talk." Just a cold, dismissive condemnation of my asterisk behavior. The aftermath was exactly what I expected. The next day, I had the car towed to their house and sent the title by certified mail. I blocked their numbers. I blocked them on all social media. I sent a short, non-negotiable email to Charlotte, explaining what had happened and simply stating, "My relationship with Mom and Dad is over. I wish you the best in your career and life." Charlotte, ever the pragmatic one, responded a week later with a single line, "I understand. Take care." It hurt, but not as much as I thought it would. Her lack of intervention confirmed everything I already knew about the family dynamic. For the first few months, there were a few attempts. My father sent one frantic email begging me to call, claiming my mother was distraught, which I suspect meant distraught that she lost an audience member, not a daughter. My mother tried sending an expensive, clearly last-minute gift basket with a card that only said, "We miss you." David intercepted it and donated it to a charity auction. He became my magnificent gatekeeper, protecting my peace with a fierce loyalty that I had never experienced before. Slowly, the silence became peaceful. I was no longer waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was no longer checking my phone with a knot of anxiety, bracing myself for the next comparison or the next disappointment. The emotional space that had been occupied by the constant, exhausting effort of trying to please them was now free. I poured that energy into my bakery. It flourished. Within a year, I opened a small physical storefront. David and I were closer than ever, We had a new family, a chosen family of friends and his loving, uncomplicated parents. It's been 5 years now. I've never heard from my mother. My father sends a generic holiday card every December, a faint, desperate echo that I immediately discard. Charlotte and I exchange a brief, polite text on major holidays, and that's it. It's a distant, surface-level connection that doesn't pierce my carefully constructed peace. Sometimes, I hear things through the grapevine. My mother has apparently started telling people that I moved abroad for an adventure, or got too busy with my business to keep up. She's created a nice, palatable lie to save face, and I let her. Her reality is no longer my problem. I got my wish, too. I live my life as though I never had parents who treated me that way. The moment I stood tall and delivered that final line was the moment I stopped being Claire, the shadow, and started being Claire, the woman who chose her own worth. It was the hardest, most painful, and yet most liberating decision of my entire life. My mother wanted me to feel the sting of her rejection. Instead, I gave her the quiet, empty weight of my complete absence. That was the real power move, so there it is. The whole truth of my 30th birthday massacre, that single moment when my own mom wished I wasn't born, became the catalyst for me finally being able to live. It was brutal, it was dramatic, and it was absolutely necessary for my survival. If you've ever felt like the odd one out, the burden, or the comparison, I hope my story gives you a fraction of the courage you might need to set yourself free. Like this video, if you were on my side, dealing with a lifetime of unfair treatment, and you think I handled the confrontation with grace and finality. Subscribe for more stories like this, where people finally find the strength to reclaim their lives. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I go too far, or was this the only way out? I'll see you all in the next story.